What's up guys, how's it going? So today I'm going to do a video that has been requested a ton of times, and that is how do I organize as well as edit my videos. So before we get into that, let me just say something real quick. If you haven't already subscribed and you enjoy my videos and you like my content, be sure to click that little red subscribe button and then click that little bell symbol right next to it, and if you click on that, you will then be notified every time I put out a new video. I don't know why, but for some reason, some people have been messaging me and commenting that they're being unsubscribed and not notified when I put out a new video. Hopefully that'll prevent that. Plus, you'll be a part of the notification squad. Now, let's get into the rest of the video. What do I use to edit? Well, I use a PC laptop. This one right here. It was about $500 when I got it. Now it's probably around $400, maybe a little around there, because it's a few years old. When I got this, I was making my videos in 720. So to edit in 720, it worked perfectly fine. But now that I'm making my videos in 1080, a little bit higher resolution, the computer's a little slow, a little bit on the slower side. It's not a bad computer. It still works just fine for me to make videos. It's just a little bit difficult, so hopefully in the future I'll upgrade to maybe a computer that'll probably be around the price of around $1,000, but it'll be faster, be able to edit videos quicker. And the particular model, because I've been asked this a lot, it's an Asus X550, 550Z. X550Z, yes. I'm pretty sure that is the model. So that's the computer I have been using for the past year or two. I use a wireless mouse. This is just a Logitech one. It's just a little mouse that's wireless. You plug in a little USB thing. I find that I can edit videos just so much quicker when I can have a separate mouse to move around. That's just what works for me. And then I use these wireless headphones. So I got these for Christmas, but before I was using these, before I had those, I would use those little white Apple headphones, and those worked perfectly fine. The only thing is when you have maybe a little bit better headphones, it's easier to listen and make sure all the volumes from different tracks are all like pretty close in the volume of it. So these, what were the, oh yeah, these are some Sony headphones. Sony headphones, wireless, well they're Bluetooth. They are the MDR/XB650BT. Man, they give headphones a long name. That's okay, whatever. That's okay. They work pretty good, and that's just what I'm using now. And then for the particular video that I'm going to be using as an example today, what did I use to film? Well, I used a GoPro, as well as a G7X, the Canon PowerShot G7X in particular. Sometimes I use different cameras. These are just the ones that I use to film this video. And one last thing before we get into the computer, I back up all my videos on 2 separate hard drives, so I have a double backup of all my videos. In case anything were to ever happen to YouTube or something, I always want to have a backup of my videos. So I back everything up twice. And because I used these cameras, well, I got to get the SD card out. So we're going to get the SD card out of the G7X and put this into my computer, and then we will jump into my computer and start the editing, and we'll first organizing the footage. Here's what I look like when I'm editing, by the way. Got my mouse, got my headphones connected, and get down to some editing. Just I usually have a chair. Oh, sorry. And here we are. And this is actually my first time doing a screen recording. So here we go. So I just put in my G7X SD card. So I'm going to go to this PC. Here's my SD card. A 2 is G7X. Open it up. Find the folder where all the footage is from the day in which I filmed. So here's all the footage. So click on one, Control A, Control C. That means I have all of it copied. And then I have a folder on my desktop, which I named it a 2Amoy Videos. I kind of like to keep all my footage very organized because it makes it easier to find stuff in the future. Making a new folder. Let's just title it, how about Treasure Hunting New Rocks. This is just a temporary name. Later on I end up renaming it. So I make a new folder for every video. Copy and paste. Patiently waiting for this to finish. There we go. And now that I'm done with the G7X, I will put that aside and I will get the GoPro SD card out. A little micro SD card. So I have to put that inside of a little adapter. Slide that into the adapter, and now let's check out the GoPro footage. Then I go back to my folder of treasure hunting new rocks. I'm going to make a new little folder, just GoPro, and then in here I will put all the GoPro footage. Yes, there we go. All the footage is in this folder, and if I use any music or anything, it's always going to go into this folder. Now that we got all the files on my computer, now let's get into the editing and the workflow of while I'm editing. So, I get this asked a lot, but the editing software that I use is Sony Vegas Pro 13. Now that it's open, I'm going to import my files that we have in the folder that we made earlier. Import media. I'm going to drag all my G7X footage in. So here it is, about 20 minutes. So this little bar right here, this is like the view of what I'm viewing. Down here, this is the timeline where I can see all the footage which I have in my editing software. And then you can actually have multiple tracks. So now I'm going to import all the GoPro footage. I like to put my GoPro as well as G7X footage on separate tracks. So this is all GoPro footage, all G7X footage. And one last thing is a song. So where I get my music from is from a website called Audio Blocks. I use that. You have to pay annual fee, which is about $100. But if there's any problems or anything, they'll take care of it. Plus, I don't have to worry about copyright. So I'm going to go choose a song, and we'll be back in 3, 2, 1. While I'm searching, I figured I'd show you guys the website. So you can actually use the filters of moods and genres and instruments and the length of time in which you'd like the song to be. Seems to be working pretty good for me because I'm always needing new songs, and there's just like an endless amount of songs. I do have a referral link that gives a pretty good discount. I'll leave it in the description in case you're interested. Now I got my song. I'm going to put it on a separate track so that I can adjust the volumes with these little slider things over here, the volume sliders. So it took me about 20 minutes to find this song because on Audio Blocks there's a lot of different types of songs, so sometimes it can take me like anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes to find a song that I like. So I'm going to now go through all the footage, chop it down. Real quick, I'll show you an example of how I cut clips. You just press the S button on your keyboard and that actually cuts the clip. So I can press S over here and then delete that if I wanted to, but I don't want to, so Control Z. So this is going to take a while, so I'm just going to jump through it really quickly. But one quick thing is that this isn't meant to be a tutorial on how to use Sony Vegas or how exactly you should edit. If you want to learn exactly how to edit and how to use Sony Vegas really good, you're going to want to go spend probably a couple of hours on YouTube because there is endless amounts of tutorials. It's like so many different tutorials you couldn't even imagine. So let's go through it. 3, 2, 1, boom! And voila! Well, this is the finished editing. So this took me about 2 to 3 hours. The reason I didn't show it is it just would have taken way too long to show all this. So what I did is I watched every clip multiple times, cut out any unnecessary footage, played over it, making sure everything was lined up the way I wanted it to, putting the music in the spots that I wanted there to be music. This is what it looks like completely before it is rendered. What's cool about Sony Vegas is I can adjust the volume levels of music with little sliders on them like this. Also, I put everything on separate tracks so that if I want to adjust the colors or adjust the volume levels of just a certain camera that I filmed with, then I can do that, whereas if they're all on the same track, it gets a little confusing and more difficult. Now that I'm done editing, now it is time to actually render all of this footage into one big video. What's the point of rendering? It takes all these little clips and it puts it into one video, which you can then upload to YouTube. Now, real quick, just before we render it, here's a few quick little tips. And oh yeah, I added a little outro to the very ending of the video, little Photoshop picture I made in Photoshop. Not too difficult to make. One tip is if you're filming shots where maybe the camera's moving around a lot, what you're going to want to do is select all of the video part of a clip, right click, switches, and disable. It took me a while to figure that out, but I found it out on YouTube. It basically just helps get rid of that like motion blur. Trust me, it helps. And one other little tip is don't spend too much time or a ton of time adding all these little special effects and adding little weird transitions, cool transitions, and wasting your time, because it can actually take away from your video and not add. Plus, it can take a really long amount of time. One last thing I do sometimes is I sometimes adjust the saturation as well as the color brightness of my videos. Just sometimes. So now it is time to render. I'm going to double click on this little tab, File, Render As. Make sure it's being saved to the right folder right here. I titled it Finished Render, that way I can find it easily. And the render settings which I use, I go down here, Sony AVC, click on this little arrow. If you want your video to be 720, click here, but my videos are now in 1080, which is full HD, so I'm going to click here. Customize template. Okay, the bitrate is actually at 16 million. That's actually the bitrate I would leave it at. If you want to, you could put it down to 10 million or like 8 million. You will lose a teeny bit of quality, but the file will be a little bit smaller. And then in the audio, bitrate for audio, it's actually set to 128,000. I'm going to change that to 384,000. I don't know, that's just what everyone on YouTube says works the best, and I find that it just seems to give me the best audio. Now, if you want your file to be a little bit smaller, you can, of course, lower these numbers. You will lose a little bit of quality, but the file will be a little bit smaller. Okay? And then that is actually my rendering. So now we're going to render it. The render is going to take about an hour and a half, 2.5 hours, so I'll be right back in 3, 2, 1, boom. And now that the video is done rendering, here is my folder with all of the stuff. So here's the little outro clip which I've made. Here's the voiceover, the song. Here's a little voiceover, which I did have to do for this video. Here's a little thumbnail, which I made for this video. The folder with all the GoPro footage. I have all of my raw footage, my unfinished render, and the most important, the actual render, which I titled Finished. If I ever need to find any of this in the future, it is all in its nice, tidy folder. Okay, now that I have finished editing my video and everything is completely edited, now what I do is I take my hard drives, which we talked about earlier, gonna plug these in and then back up the entire folder of footage right onto the hard drive. Plug it right in. Here's my hard drive. I have 2016, 2017, 2017, and then I actually make a new folder for each month. This month's January. Here's all the videos which I've made this month, and another video for the collection, Treasure Hunting New Rocks. Copy and paste it over, and that is basically it. Now I just upload the video to YouTube, publish it, and that is how I make a entire YouTube video. If you want to see the video which I was using as an example in the editing, check out my last video. That is that video which I was using as the example, so you can see what the finished product looked like. Be sure to check that out. That's everything for this video. If you have any ideas or recommendations or just suggestions of how I could improve either my way of editing or improve the way in which I organize my footage, please let me know down below in the comments. I love to hear your guys' feedback. Remember to keep always doing awesome stuff, and I'll see you guys tomorrow early in the morning.